Today is the first day of my vacation. I woke up later than usual. The apartment was filled with an unfamiliar silence. This morning, the whole family went about their business. My wife Julie left for work. My son David went to school. I hadn't been able to take a vacation for the past couple of years, so waking up alone in an empty apartment felt unusual. I would have liked to relax with the whole family somewhere abroad or by the sea, but I could only get my well-deserved vacation time in the fall. So I'll be relaxing alone. It's better than nothing. As I was making myself breakfast, I started making plans for today. It turns out it's nice to plan your day when you can do everything without rush and bustle. Julie's work ends at 5, so she'll be home around 6:30. By that time, I decided to make dinner and gather the whole family at one table, something we haven't done in a long time. When dinner was ready, my son was already home. Only my wife still hadn't returned. Could I have gotten something mixed up? I clarified with my son what time Julie usually gets home, but David just shrugged uncertainly. He said it varies and recommended I simply call her. My wife didn't answer. We decided to eat dinner together, the three of us, before the food got cold. It wasn't till 11 that the entrance door to her bedroom quietly clicked open. Julie, carefully, like a thief, walked into the room and stopped in the doorway. Surprised that I wasn't asleep yet, she asked why I hadn't gone to bed yet, but I ignored the question. I was a little upset that my wife didn't answer my calls today and came home so late. She's always available and lets me know ahead of time if something urgent comes up at work. When I asked why she couldn't make it to dinner, Julie tired. She sat on the edge of the bed and guiltily explained that an emergency came up at work, which made the boss furious and forced all employees to stay late to fix the mistake. After telling me this, my wife tenderly laid her head on my shoulder and said she missed me and would like to spend the vacation together. The unpleasant feeling that had plagued me all evening finally disappeared. We talked for a little while longer in the kitchen, over a cup of herbal tea, discussed the events of the day. I shared my plan for the vacation. My wife listened attentively and supported my idea to go to my hometown, to visit my parents, to see friends and go fishing with my dad. I was planning on staying there for 3 or 4 days and even wanted to bring my son along. But David refused, saying he was too busy and didn't want to skip school for a fishing trip. The next day I started getting ready for the trip. First, I had to dig out my hiking backpack, but I couldn't find it in the closet. I had to rummage through all the cabinets to try and locate it in one of them among the bags and boxes in the very corner. I found a new box with a familiar logo. I reflexively pulled it out and looked inside. It contained a new pair of women's shoes in a bright red color with high heels made of soft leather. It was clear these shoes were very expensive. This really surprised me. Her shoes are these Julie's, but if she bought them, why hide them here? Second, she never wore high heels and couldn't afford such luxurious shoes on her salary. 10 minutes later, as I tried to find an answer, a thought flashed. Maybe this is a gift, but who would give her shoes? Friends? Colleagues? Or could it be from a man? A shiver went through me at my own musings, and I decided to shelve the question until evening when I could ask my wife directly. I continued my packing and gradually forgot about the shoes as I gathered various odds and ends that might come in handy on the road or for fishing. I suddenly remembered my keychain that I always take with me, but I couldn't recall where I'd put it. The last time I saw it was 2 years ago. Of course I could manage without it, but when you return briefly to your childhood home, having those keys in your pocket reminds you that this is the house where you grew up. I searched for the keys for a long time, but never found them. I decided to make one last attempt before giving up and looked in the cupboard where Julie kept various junk stuff that wasn't exactly needed but seemed ashamed to throw out, just in case it came in handy. Among the endless items, I did find my keys, and as I pulled them out, I accidentally dislodged a few small pieces of paper as well, one purple. She caught my eye, ripped from a notepad without thinking. I reflexively read the contents. This is my number. Call me. I'll be waiting. Max. A multitude of questions instantly arose. I wondered who the note was meant for and how it ended up in this cupboard. I reread it several times but couldn't recall anyone I knew named Max. My wife had never mentioned anyone by that name in my presence either. Just then the phone rang and distracted me from my musings, and soon after I completely forgot about the purple note. That evening, I decided to stop by the local supermarket to buy groceries and a few things for the fishing trip right by the entrance. I was hailed and insistently tugged by the sleeve of my jacket. Turning around, I was met with the cold eyes of Anna. She was one of the friends my wife socialized with. I'd seen her a couple of times at our place, but had never spoken with her. To be frank, Anna was a tall, gorgeous blonde with model looks and a lovely smile. But there was something off-putting about her. She loved shoes and bags made of crocodile and snake skin and resembled those dangerous creatures herself. So the sight of her always made me want to keep my distance. The woman crowded up against me, bombarding me with questions about my life and seemed unwilling to let go even when I said I was in a hurry to get home. Such obtrusive attention stirred anger inside me. I definitely did not like Hannah. After 5 minutes of inane questioning, not waiting to see how it would unfold further, I quickly slipped away and seizing her by the shoulders, roughly pushed her away from me. Anna not expecting such an outburst. Frozen surprise. I didn't want to create ambiguous situations or offend anyone, so hardly apologizing, I tried to explain that I really was in a rush to get home. The blonde, having regained her composure, bluntly asked if I didn't like her. This question took me by surprise. What was she trying to accomplish by asking it? Listen, Anna, I began in a conciliatory tone. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not at all interested. Besides, I'm really in a hurry. Julie will be home from work soon. Oh, come on. The blonde interrupted me. He's rushing to his beloved wife. You're so devoted to her. But here's the thing. She took a step back, looked me up and down and added, is she really worth such loyalty? What do you mean by that? I asked, not recognizing my own voice. Anna silently observed my reaction, a cunning smile appearing on her face. I crossed my arms over my chest and waited for an answer. After pausing for a few more seconds, my wife's acquaintance glanced away and suddenly brushed off her own words, asking me to pay them no mind. Silently turning away from her without saying goodbye, I entered the supermarket and hurried towards the back of the store. Staying near her was difficult. The sticky, unpleasant feeling lingered long after that encounter. That evening, before my departure, my wife was late from work again. I fell asleep without waiting for her to come home or discussing that strange situation when I woke up in the morning. Julie had already left for work. A small note with wishes for a good trip lay on the table, which cheered me up a little. After saying goodbye to my son, I set out for my hometown in Michigan. Everything seemed normal, but something weighed on me, tormenting my heart and mind, giving me no peace. The first evening after arriving, I texted my wife that I was fine and had reached my parents' house without incident. She didn't reply. I went fishing and came back late in the evening, but still got no call from my wife. The next day I called David and asked how things were at home. My son Leslie replied that nothing interesting could have happened in a day. Those teenagers, they don't appreciate their elders' care. When I asked how his mom was doing, silence descended on the other end. I could tell David was trying to choose his words carefully. I asked if something had happened, and his reply surprised me. Turns out Julie had suddenly left on a business trip for a couple of days to another city, which was odd since her accounting job doesn't usually involve business trips. Plus, she'd never traveled for work before. Something was off. I stared at my phone in confusion. The thousand thoughts raced through my mind, displacing each other. I tried calling Julia, but her phone was unavailable again. My head started to ache, so I decided to take a walk through the autumn woods. The fresh air, quiet and sense of nature calmed my nerves a bit and put my thoughts in order. I decided to call my acquaintance Anthony, who worked in the same department as Julie and must have known what was going on. We met last year when he helped my family move. Slightly nervous, I dialed the number and waited for him to answer. A pleasant, calm voice came through. It was Anthony. We chatted a little about life, and when I told him about my vacation in Michigan, he knowingly replied, "So Julie went with you. That's why she needed those 2 days off." I was silent. My counterpart said something more fast, but I could no longer hear him mechanically saying goodbye. I hung up, leaned against a nearby tree trunk and closed my eyes. I didn't want to see, hear, or feel anything. Evening quickly descended. The sky darkened, and I remained sitting there, noticing nothing around me. My thoughts went back to when I had found that expensive pair of women's shoes. Then this strange note and Anna's insinuations. However much I tried to find an innocent explanation, one clear conclusion took shape in my mind. My wife had a lover returning home earlier than planned. I impatiently awaited Julie when she came back. I directly told her about the suspicious events of the past few days and openly declared my suspicion about her lover. Contrary to my expectations, she didn't even deny it. She admitted that lately she had been feeling lonely since I came home late and tired myself, and we rarely talked heart to heart anymore. A new colleague named Max had appeared at her work who paid attention to her. At first it was innocent compliments and jokes, but it gradually grew into infatuation. She stated outright that she loved Max and wanted to be with him, but didn't want a divorce because of her son and suggested I get a mistress myself to make it fair. I was shocked by her coldness in that moment. We'd spent so many years together, raised a son and built a home, and she devalued it all with her affair as if it was perfectly normal. I couldn't take it anymore and blew up into a loud fight in the bedroom. After heated accusations, we both concluded that our relationship was irretrievably damaged and had no chance of continuing. After my demands, Julie agreed to get an amicable divorce without court proceedings. We decided we would co-parent our son together, but live separately. I stayed in our apartment while Julia and David moved in with Max. Our son hated him from the moment they first met. He took our divorce very hard and blamed everything on the man who had cuckolded his own father. David always found a reason to snap at Max, often ignoring him pointedly. Despite his mother's pleas, the boy made no effort to befriend the man who had destroyed his family. According to my son's stories, the atmosphere in that strange house was always tense. Things got much worse when the lover tried to take my son in hand and started demanding obedience in his home. David reacted explosively, of course, declaring he had no desire to listen to an arrogant goat who had stuck horns on his own father. The fight escalated into a brawl in which David took a fist to the eye and tried to break Max's nose, but Julia intervened just in time. When I heard about what had happened, I went to their apartment myself and broke that damned man's nose as revenge and a warning for messing with my son. I told my ex-wife David would never set foot in that house again and took him to live with me. I think life got its revenge on Julia for me because soon after, her lover dumped her and kicked her out of his apartment. I didn't want to take Julia back into her family, despite her apologies and pleas for help. Soon, she rented a new apartment and wanted to take David to live with her. But he refused to live with his mother. Apparently, the whole cheating situation had deeply hurt the boy since he barely spoke to her after that. I didn't blame him because I understood that pain and disappointment in a loved one.